Create from scratch. This is the Commonplace Binder. I'm going to put this down now. So, Commonplace Binder Q&A, Commonplace Binder 101, video number 81. We are going to talk about all the questions you have asked me. Yeah, there aren't a lot of questions. So, we're just going to do a presentation based on questions I think people might ask, or things that I feel might answer some potential questions in the future. But I don't know. So if you do have some questions, please leave those down below, and hopefully I'll get to those in the next Q&A, which will probably be next year around this time. So it'll be a long time from now, but I'll probably get to the comments. Create from scratch. So as I said earlier, I don't know what you're going to be asking me, so we just got to make something up as we go along. And I'm going to pick this up again. That is kind of how the binder works a lot of the time. We don't necessarily know what's going to be in here. We don't necessarily know how to do it. So we just make something, and then eventually whatever we happen to focus on the most or do first becomes a larger part of the project. So, you know, I wasn't expecting to be the guy who presents in a specific way, but it was just the easiest way to do it based on the resources I had available. And that just might be how it goes. Adjusting expectations. You might have certain expectations as to how your thing is supposed to go, and quickly find out that's going to be very challenging. So you might just need to adjust your expectations. Position for the long term. I think that just says position for long term. So we might not know what the long-term goal is. We might just know we have some long-term goals. And so in that sense, it's good to prep for a whole bunch of different things. Now, you might have some people saying, why don't you just do the thing? Why do you have to prep for every single possible outcome? And, you know, this is a good question to ask, but it's not necessarily the thing we have to focus on all day, every day, because then we end up with the same sort of problem. So, how am I positioning for the long term? Well, with a 100 video playlist, the hope is that, you know, I'm on 81 of 100. The hope is that I will be the person for Commonplace Binder, and I will never have to make this type of video again, and I will be able to focus on something new. But my playlist will remain, and anyone else who wants to make videos on the subject will have, well, 100 videos to look at and check the data of to see if the videos work out or if they don't work out. And it might be that they really want to focus on one specific thing, but they'll see that keyword does absolutely horribly. But they might realize that keyword doesn't match with me, and it might match with them. So, room to try. They will have that room to try. They can try whatever they want. Just like if you're working in a binder, you can try whatever you want, because if it doesn't work, you just take it out, and that's it. Handpicked. So one of the great things about doing this in a binder, I'm going to pick this up again. It's very fun to, you know, pick it up and put it down. Although I do feel like I'm lifting weights because I don't lift. So, yeah, the things that we choose are handpicked because, you know, we're using our hands. I'm using this more like claws. Yeah, so they're chosen by hand, and they're chosen by individuals. Like, I'm going to choose what goes in my own binder because it's not chosen by an algorithm. Unless, of course, in the future we base everything on whatever does the best for this project, and then the demonstration binder is the thing which is filled with all of the hand-picked things, which are actually based on what the algorithm wants, which is technically what the audience wants, although if the audience is mostly bots, then I don't know, we'll find something out. What am I missing? What am I missing? Am I not supposed to understand that a lot of the views are probably bots? Maybe this channel actually has a much higher percentage of humans than bots, because the engagement is much higher than normal in terms of like how many people comment. But you know, bots are also learning to comment now, so who knows? What am I missing when it comes to the Q&A? Or what am I missing when it comes to long term? What am I missing in general? If you feel like you know that, please leave the answer down below. Now, I'm not necessarily going to ask you questions just because I think I know the answer and I would like to hear you say the answer back to me. A lot of the time when I ask people questions, I actually want them to answer the question because I think it'll help them out, and it might also help me out, even if the only thing it helps me with is the process of asking questions. behind the scenes. So what is the behind the scenes method for this? Where am I getting all these questions from? If they're not really questions and I'm just making them up. Am I using the bots? No. The thing that I'm actually doing is I am watching and reading and thinking and writing down a whole bunch of individual words. The last two are exceptions to the other 18 here. But what I'm doing is I'm writing down a word or 2 words or, sometimes more than that. I'm putting them in a giant word bank, and then when I go to make a video for this last set of 20, what I'm doing is just grabbing individual things from the word bank. So the way this works is I'll have a whole bunch of different options. Sorry, I'm going to keep both hands in front. And what I'll do is I will just kind of like scroll through them. And then for every little blurb, which normally means that it came from one particular source or during one session of thinking or whatever, what I'll do is I'll grab that one little bit and then I'll move on. So that way there's no chance of there being like 3 different things from the same source, because I feel like 1 is fine, 2 is kind of pushing it, and then 3 is like, dude. At the very least, that requires a little bit of credit. And I think there's only one video out of this set of 100 that's even vaguely close to being like that. It was not done intentionally, but I think it's somewhere in the low 60s in terms of the number. Maintain it. So am I going to be able to maintain this playlist by using the word bank? Yeah, I think that'd be pretty easy. Although I do want to get on to the next playlist, which is going to be somewhat unrelated. So what I'm going to do is, well, what I have been doing this whole time, except I think it should be a little bit easier. It might be a little bit harder if I did it wrong, but if I did it correctly, it should be a little bit easier. And so what I mean is I grabbed all these little things to talk about, and then I wrote them out in a document, and then as they were basically like outline headings, or, at the beginning of a mini paragraph or just a sentence, what I would do is I would write a bunch of stuff afterwards. And so what I plan on doing is cutting each video in half, and then this will be redone for 2026, and this will be redone for 2027. So it'll be a little bit more of a deep dive, rather than just, we're gonna throw random words at the people and see what happens. I will replace some of these videos that do absolutely terribly. Like, for example, if a video gets 7 views, that will probably not be a video that I redo for next year. But I also don't want to end up in the situation where all I do is I'm like, well, this half of videos did really well and this half did poorly, so we're just going to double the ones that did great. Because, that might be great for the short-term views and stuff, but it's going to feel a little bit repetitive, and I don't really want to make the things repetitive at all. So we'll see how that goes. Dismissing the data. So the data says that if I do this one thing, it'll go great. If I just say how to, I'll get twice as many views. So I should do that every time, right? Well, sometimes I feel like we need to dismiss little data points like that because we don't know the full story. Or at least I don't know the full story. So it might be the how to actually has to tell the person how to do the thing, and so just saying how to over and over again is not beneficial, and it will actually just kind of like aggravate people, and then they'll never come back, and then I'll be like, well, I got views on this and I didn't get views after this, so what's going on? It's like there was something that pushed the person away permanently. Overthinking. Oh my gosh, which thing in here is going to push someone away permanently? Do I need to stress about that? No, like, it's just like, you don't really need to overthink this. You just add a page, and then you add another page, and then you add another page. And if you want, you can edit them or look back on them later, but it's not, you don't have to freak out about it. It's fine. Budget alternatives. So what are the budget alternatives to a Commonplace Binder? Well, if you already use a computer or some other digital device, then you could just keep the notes digitally. Because then you wouldn't have to pay for paper or a place to store the paper, or, you know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of actual materials that go into this, and so if you don't have a bunch of materials, then you could just store this stuff digitally. Technically, that's more of a personal knowledge base. But we don't really need to worry about the exact terms or terminology because this is more of a Q&A where we're just feeling our way through it and doing random stuff. Luck or legacy? If you have a commonplace book, are you going to do things better because of the legacy of the book that came before you and all that knowledge that was transferred, or are you just getting lucky? Well, I think it might be a little bit of both, because, you know, there are a lot of things that seem to be at least a little bit luck-based. But if you've done the work, or somebody else has done the work before you, and then you're doing the process in the same way, I feel like the process might actually be what makes the thing happen. Like, I would not be able to be making this video right now unless I had made these videos before, because my back hurts, I'm tired, we have guests, and there are a whole bunch of other things that are not making it very easy to record today. But because I have this process lined out, and because I've done it before, I can keep doing it. And so, I don't know, I might get lucky. This might be a video that gets into the top 10 on the channel. On the other hand, it might not. And I'm not really worried about that, because it's more about the process and just doing the thing, and eventually the good stuff will come. Fast track. So, what's the fast way to get all the way to where the good stuff actually starts happening? Well, I don't know. If I knew that, I wouldn't be hanging out with, like, only a few hundred subscribers. I would have figured this out already. But in some ways it's good to not be on the fast track, because I'll figure out all the little things along the way before I get to the really scary realization that hundreds, if not thousands, of people are watching, and that's terrifying. So like with this, for example, if you start with a book instead of a binder, what might happen is you got the fancy stuff, you have all the fancy stationery, and you don't necessarily know what to write on it, and that can be very, very frustrating. Empty promise. It might actually feel like an empty promise. Like someone might say, you can do this thing, it's going to be great, and then you actually go to do it. It kind of doesn't work out, because they just kind of pushed you along, and they were like, yeah, you're gonna feel like you're doing better, and you're advancing, and if there's nothing at the destination, it kind of sucks to go on the trip. Like, sometimes the trip is great, other times it's not great. And then if the destination isn't even there, that's really annoying. Independent route. So maybe, instead of going on this pre-selected, fast way through, you're just gonna do your own thing, and that's gonna work out somehow. I feel like that's how all of these go. So you could try to copy this, but remember, this is just the demo. And in some ways, it's not really a proper demo, because it's the thing that's helping me make videos. So if you're going to be making videos, then I guess you could copy the thing that I'm working on. But if you're not making videos, the process won't make any sense, because it's like, why did you do it this way? It just, like, if it's not made for you, that's okay. It's probably just made for someone else. And that might mean there's something made for you. And if there's not something made for you, then you know what to make, because then you'll be making the thing that's made for people like you. Verifiable information. So, if someone makes a big claim, how are we going to verify it? Well, a lot of the time, it seems like people don't verify anything. So I'm talking about verifying information. And yet, how often do I actually verify the videos that tell me how to change my life in a positive way? Like, how often do I actually do the advice in the videos? How often do I actually write the things down, look through them, and then figure out if they work? Maybe 10% of the time, which is actually really high compared to the average person, because I think the average person just kind of watches stuff like that, and they don't do it. Now, it might be I'm doing this in the exact way that everybody else is doing it, and most people never apply any of that information, and we never verify it, and we're just flying through life like, I hope this works. Predictable formula. I kind of talked about this earlier when I was supposed to be talking about luck or legacy. Now, part of the problem for that, I'm going to say, is because everything is reversed, right? So by the time I make this an edited recording, I will fix the mirroring, but I think the thumbnail is still totally broken, so I'm going to have to figure out how to flip the thumbnail. And so I had a predictable formula for recording videos, and then for whatever reason my phone changed everything in the last update. So now I think it was actually 2 updates ago, because I get pretty frequent phone updates. But the last time I recorded a set of videos, the phone was just like broken for no reason. And so I looked through all the possible ways to fix it, and there were actually a few ways, and it seemed like I had fixed it, and then it was actually just a tiny bit more broken, which was like, yeah, I don't know what happened, and it's still not fixed. So at this point, it feels like I'm just going to wait until I have an editor or someone who can, maybe I'll just wait for a new phone. I don't want to spend any more hours on it. List my ideas. So what are the ways I could fix my phone? No, that's probably not what you're here for. This is the Commonplace Binder Q&A. So just remember, this is a binder. Basically the same thing as a book, except, it's got rings, so the stuff can come in and go out. I have a contents page here. I'm going to hold that up a little bit more. And the reason I have a contents page instead of just an index is because the pages move around, the page numbers don't make sense, and it's very difficult to have an index without page numbers. So it's much easier just to have a contents page, and to make things even easier to verify the information. I write the title here, and then at the top of, whatever page I'm on. So we're going to close this up again. So I list my ideas throughout the binder, but I also list them on the computer, and sometimes just a blank sheet of paper, I'll toss that in a random part of my room. I'm not throwing it all over the floor. I do have organized places, but we gotta get to the rest of this. So please let me know what you thought of my Commonplace Binder Q&A. The reason that my challenger here is because when I was collecting the data back in, 2023, what I found is that when I was sorting for Q&A, there wasn't a whole bunch of stuff. Because most of the videos were all about specific things, like a video on an index or a video on how-to, and there wasn't really a Q&A, because if nobody has the video on what is an incredibly basic concept, it wouldn't really make sense to have a Q&A where somebody just goes over all the general stuff. Because if they haven't even made a what is a commonplace book video, then they're probably not going to make the Q&A, right? So who, what, where, when, why, and how, and all the other basic question words, those seem to get made a lot more. So Q&A, I didn't really have anything to work with. So some people would just give more information about their project. I had a few more notes on this, but I decided the first 18 would just go in sort of a story format, or try to follow a narrative or a thought process, where I would look at the word bank and pull out whatever was the most important, and then the data, the actual stuff that seemed to perform well on the platform, went at the end. Challenge. I challenge you to finally leave that comment. No, I don't really want to challenge anybody to do anything in an aggressive way, this is a thing where one person's going to win and one person's going to lose. No, this is more of a friendly challenge where it's just maybe if you write things down, you could write it down in a slightly more organized way, and if you don't write things down, you could write a thing down every so often. Not really worried about it. This has been quite a challenge for me to make, because it is technically 25 hours of content, so going a little crazy. But that's technically probably less than the length of this playlist, because this video is supposed to be 15 minutes long and we're approaching 20 minutes long. So begin commonplacing. That's what you should be up to if you haven't done that already. That is the main subject of next video, and if you want to check that out, well, click the next video. So, thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Okay, bye.